a biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Mandy will be with us with all the breaking news out of Israel and the Middle East. Mandy, welcome. I know there's lots going on.
Yeah, when you say all, I want to say there's a smidgen. There's so much, I can't fit it all in.
So there's a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hezbollah.
Most Israelis do not want this ceasefire deal because it leaves Hezbollah remaining in Lebanon, and Hezbollah has repeated over and over and over again that they will never stop in their efforts to destroy Israel. And I might add, there are a whole lot of citizens in Lebanon. They don't want the ceasefire deal either. They're putting out videos saying, Israel, don't do this. Keep going until Hezbollah's gone, because if you don't, we're going to be right back where we started in a few years. We'll be back to war. They're saying finish them, get rid of them. But let me just tell you what the key points are of this deal. It demands a mutual ceasefire, and the US is to oversee the implementation of this by the Lebanese side. Israel reserves the right to respond militarily to any violations, which is highly likely. Israel will remain in Lebanon up to 60 days from the signing of the agreement and withdrawing gradually. The Lebanese army will deploy at all crossings. That has already started. Unfortunately, there's no buffer zone, and the residents of southern Lebanon, who are mostly Hezbollah, will return to their homes, their families. The Lebanese government is to oversee weapons production and sales instead of Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is to remain at least 9 miles away from the Israeli border. But again, that means Hezbollah remains. So, of course, everybody's really suspicious and doubtful about this, because the last time a deal was struck, it required Hezbollah to stay away from the border north of the Litani River. And the day Israel withdrew, they went straight to the border. UNIFIL, the forces by the UN, were all there, and they did nothing to stop it, which was the whole point of them being there. So, expectations are low. Prime Minister Netanyahu said that there were 3 main reasons that Israel agreed to this ceasefire. The first one was to focus on Iran. The second one was to refresh the IDF forces and for the release of armaments that have been delayed by the USA. And also, number 3, the separation of arenas and the isolation of Hamas. So they're fighting on a lot of fronts. 7 fronts is what they're fighting on. They want to reduce the number of fronts that they're fighting on. But basically, the primary reason for them having to capitulate to this ceasefire is because the US is withholding military aid and forcing Israel's hand. Now, a lot of people are saying that all President Biden wants is to be able to say that when he left the presidency, he managed to get a ceasefire. He wants that feather in his cap. But he's not thinking about the people of Lebanon and the people of Israel. This is about point scoring, unfortunately. French President Macron also has been imposing a huge amount of pressure on Israel. They're part of these negotiations because, first of all, it's a very anti-Israel government, and also they got a lot of business dealings within Lebanon because, remember, Lebanon was under the French mandate after the Second World War. Israel and Jordan were under the British mandate. France and Syria were under the French mandate. Lebanon and Syria were under the French mandate.
Yep.
There are a great deal of who are concerned that this agreement could actually end Netanyahu's political career. The man has had so much pressure on his shoulders. As I said, the Lebanese army has already begun moving south in anticipation of fulfilling its obligations. We hope that they will. So really, it's watch this space. If Hezbollah does what they normally do, they will break the ceasefire because they really can't stand having to capitulate to Israel. But make no mistake, they're not going to stop. They have made their intentions clear. Now, here are some of the things that were found within the Hezbollah tunnels, and bunkers ready for an attack. Nerve gas, chemical protective equipment, masks, jumpsuits, Narcan shots, date rape drugs and condoms, because Hezbollah were planning a worse Holocaust-style attack than what Hamas committed on October 7. They have not changed their position or their aspirations.
Yeah,
it's a dangerous situation.
It's terrible, Mandy, and so there's an increase in attacks as well in the lead up to the ceasefire.
Oh yeah, I mean both sides are going hell for leather now to try to get as many shots in as they can, because it's literally by 11 o'clock our time today. It's only 24 hours from then, so 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. Excuse me, our time. Hezbollah has been lobbing rockets at an increased rate. Buildings and cars have been damaged in Israel. Thankfully, most of them landing in open areas. A number of people have been injured. I'm not aware of any fatalities in the last couple of days, although a couple of soldiers more have been killed, which is just dreadful. I know Iron Dome is still doing its thing, but when you are bombarded with literally 60, 70, 120 rockets, Iron Dome can only hit so many at a time. At the same time, though, the IDF is also increasing its efforts to destroy as much Hezbollah structure as they can. I mean, at one point in the last 24 hours, I think the IDF destroyed 20 targets of Hezbollah in 120 seconds. That is continuing. It's not without giving ample warning to the citizens who are leaving in droves. They're getting out, they're getting to safety, and then they stand back and they video the buildings about to be destroyed. So they know what's coming, they get to safety, and then they video it. So they are getting to safety. No other army in the world does that, Andrew.
Yeah.
Gives them their enemies so much, time to get to safety. Well, that's because they don't believe that the Lebanese people are their enemy. It's Hezbollah that they're fighting against. And this is going to continue until the ceasefire kicks in, because Israel wants Hezbollah to be gone, or at least on life support, so that they can't rise again and hurt more people. That's the goal. They've also destroyed 8 bridges in Syria as part of that are transportation routes that are used to move weapons from Iran through Syria to Hezbollah in Lebanon. So they've destroyed those too.
Yeah, so it sounds like more of a pause than a ceasing of the conflict there.
Yeah.
But moving on to another area here, the UN has sacked a staff member because they won't condemn Israel.
I know. I was appalled when I read this morning. The United Nations has decided to fire its special advisor on the prevention of genocide. Her name is Alice Warimu Nderitu, and she's from Kenya. She's being forced out of her role at the UN because she publicly said that Israel's operations in Gaza, after investigating everything, she said they do not meet the definition of genocide. So apparently, if you want to work at or with the United Nations, you have to be an anti-Israel proponent.
Yeah.
Apparently.
And good on Alice for standing up to the UN
absolutely.
like that and
Lord
being
bless her.
brave and being bold like she has been.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she's a Christian as well. There are many Christians in Kenya. But
There are.
there's also an ongoing concern about the security along the border with Jordan.
Yeah, it's become quite problematic. I mean, they've had a peace treaty, Israel has, with Jordan since October of 94. They have a 307-kilometre border. That's the entire length of Israel, just quietly. 307 kilometres is the entire length of the country. And they have an electronic fence, a security fence. So if anybody comes to the fence and touches it or gets close to it, both sides are notified that somebody's at the border and they can both come and check. But it's become quite porous, especially along the areas of Judea and Samaria, where there's a lot of PLO-controlled Arab towns and communities. And a lot of terrorism has been coming out of those communities. And as the IDF has gone in, to deal with those terrorists, they're finding all this weaponry has come in from Jordan. So the new Defence Minister, Israel Katz, he is saying that they're going to allocate tens of millions of shekels to beef up security along the border to stop the influx of weapons.
Yeah, interesting. And arrest warrants issued by the ICC and the global response to this, Mandy.
Oh, this has just been terrible. The ICC chief prosecutor, he's new to the ICC. His name is Karim Ahmad Khan. He was born in Scotland. He's of Pakistani descent. He's got a really long anti-Israel history. And I read an article at New English Review website. And according to this article, the ICC rules state that, quote, the court will only prosecute an individual if states are unwilling or unable to prosecute. Well, Israel has a court system and they are more than able and willing to prosecute criminals, be they terrorists or be they their own leaders. They've done it many times. But Mr. Khan, he does not believe that Israel is a state. He refuses to acknowledge that. So according to this article, because of that stance that he has, the ICC is going to prosecute Israel's leaders for imagined crimes. In spite of this and the fact that Israel is not even a member of the ICC, neither is the US. Now, the ICC has not followed the rule of law in the issuing of these warrants. Israel was not given an opportunity to present evidence refuting the claims made against them, but there are those who are going to push back. Alan Dershowitz, he is a Jewish-American attorney. He's apparently putting together a legal dream team to defend Israel in the court as well as on the world stage. And in fact, Senator Lindsey Graham in the US, he's actually said publicly that any nation who actually enforces these warrants against Israel's Prime Minister and former Defence Minister are going to be a target of financial sanctions by the US. So any nation that wants to enforce these needs to be very careful. I mean, our own government in Australia has, been embarrassingly insipid in its response. I believe that's my personal view with the ICC's actions. I mean, our foreign minister has said nothing more than, our government, respects the ICC's decisions. Our Prime Minister has said nothing. There was an article in the Courier Mail yesterday, and the author wrote this. This is the title. He said, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has achieved what I thought to be the unachievable. He has managed to make me ashamed to be an Australian. And that was because of our government's posture regarding the treatment of Israel.
Yeah, it's very sad, Mandy.
Really sad.
Very sad, because I think the exact quote from Foreign Minister Wong was that we have to respect the judicial process of the ICC, but it doesn't sound like there is a judicial process. They're not following
the judicial process. That's the whole point.
Yeah. Well, finally, Mandy, what's happening with Gaza? Is it included in the ceasefire deal?
No, they are not in the ceasefire deal. Hamas have stated emphatically that they will not release the hostages unless Israel capitulates to all of their demands, like they're in the power seat. They won't agree to anything. And Israel has said from day one, if you surrender and release our hostages, the war stops. Hamas is still dug in, albeit smaller numbers, much smaller numbers, and they are running out of hiding spaces. But after October 7, Israel simply will not allow Hamas to remain. They will not. And as for what the future and the goals of Hamas is, well, 7 days ago, on November the 20th, Hamas leader Ghazi Hamad, who I'm guessing is hiding in Turkey, said resistance is the only way to eliminate Israel. And he said, we will never accept a two-state solution. So then the reporter says to him, if Hamas can go back in time, would they have committed October 7th? And he said, what other choice do Palestinians have? Resistance is the only way we can eliminate this fascist criminal occupying country. So here's the issue. The ideology that drives them has completely deluded them. They are in blanket denial of history, evidence of the reality, and they cannot be negotiated with. And they have even put that in their own charter. The Hamas charter says we will not negotiate, ever, 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 ever. And so the world has no right to make a demand of Israel to impose a two-state solution when their partner has already said, we will never accept a two-state solution. So therefore, it is not a solution for peace. It is nothing more than a preempt for more war and death.
Yeah. Wow, Mandy. So much going on in the Middle East and in Israel, and I want to thank you for joining us on 2020 today.
My pleasure.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.